that you don't know this guy's identity?
I think so. I always gravitate towards these characters who you don't really know their history. They're a bit of a badass, but you don't really want to know their history either. You're just happy that this person is here, and they're so magnetic. And this guy, the actor, has such charisma, but in a really kind of laid back way. I like the way he always looks like he's been on the sake the night before, and he looks a bit bedraggled and that kind of thing. So, yeah, the whole man with no name thing is such a potent thing, and it's no wonder that they used it so much in the advertising for the Eastwood movies, because everyone wants to know who the guy is.
Right.
I think it's very interesting. It adds a lot. See, the extent of my samurai knowledge comes from the Criterion Collection, and the movies that are in there. And I mean, like, I'm a huge Criterion Collection fan. I can't afford it anymore. I mean, so about 10 years ago, I guess 9 years ago, I stopped buying them. But I had every single Criterion release up to, which is like 600 movies, right?
That's
so
insane.
I got a massive collection, and I pick and choose what I buy now. I buy a few here and there, but I've seen a ton of these movies, and the thing about that I get from these, and so my interpretation of these is that the Japanese culture is very family driven, and samurai were these people that were hired by important families and stuff at the time. However, you would have the case of something called a ronin, which was a samurai without a master, right? And so what we get out of this, so we get this guy as a ronin because he's he doesn't have a master. He's on his own. He's out for hire for himself. He's moving from town to town, making money on his own. But to me, the fact that he doesn't have a name as well means that he's like an orphan, right? So it adds something to his character. In a culture that is so family driven, the fact that this guy is not only a ronin, but he also has no family. He doesn't know who his family is. And I think that's really fascinating because while it doesn't really reveal anything about his history, it does reveal something about his history if you know the culture. So I think it's really cool, the fact that he looks and he just, wherever he is, he kind of chooses a name at that time. Because he even says in this movie, "What's in a name?" Because you don't even know who I am, anyways, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they kind of address that in the film itself. So
so,
it's perfect.
Yeah, so he could be just making something up, but again, they're not going to know who he is either way. So my interpretation of it is that he has no family, which of itself is important in Japanese culture. So.
Very good. And, Quentin Tarantino, who's, of course, very inspired by all these classic films and the films of Kurosawa, whatnot, he kind of carries us on in the Kill Bill movies because Beatrice Kiddo has no name for the first volume of Kill Bill. She has no name, so they just call her the kid and other things. And they would beep out her name in the second one until it's finally revealed. So anyway, keeping that tradition going.
And for that, it's good that you bring that up, too, because a lot of people criticize Kill Bill for its gratuitous violence in it, but it all stems from this genre of films, like these slashes with the blood just splashing everywhere. Mm-hmm. It comes from Japanese cinema of this era. This is a thing, and you're going to see something like this in Sanjuro, of where that kind of came from.
Yeah, I mean the amount of violence relative to other films of the time in this film is very similar to the amount of violence in Kill Bill in relation to the amount of violence in the films of the mid 2000s. So,
and that's one of the things that's misunderstood about Tarantino. If you don't understand what he's doing in his movies, you're missing the point completely, right? Because again, people just criticize it for being gratuitous, but no, he's doing something very specific. He is homaging and honoring a very specific genre of films. We're kind of going off on a tangent here, but in Jackie Brown, when I don't know that culture because I don't watch a lot of blaxploitation films, but when the bail bond guy looks at Jackie Brown's character, a white audience interprets that scene differently than a black audience interprets that scene, and he talks about it, because he's filming it for the black audience, but the white audience, because of the way white movies are filmed, interprets it a completely different way. Anyways, that's just kind of a tangent that I've gone on, but yeah.
Yeah. Film School 101 with Brandon-Shea coming soon. That's good though. That's good, Brandon. No, I enjoy. We can have the back and forth here during the trivia. Now, speaking of the violence, Kurosawa, he asked his sound engineer Ichiro Minawa to come up with a sound effect to use when the sword is cutting and killing someone. Because you're not actually doing that, so you need to figure out a good ADR way to get that across. And Foley is the technical term. See, I got some Film School 101 I can share as well. But so they tested on a lot of things, like slicing through beef and pork, like a sword, using a sword now to slice through beef and pork. And they found the perfect one they found and settled on, sound effect, was putting 2 chopsticks inside raw chicken and then hacking that with a sword. And that is the sound effect you hear various variations of when Sanjuro is cutting up all the gang members and the bad guys in this film. So
the chopsticks would be like the bones breaking or something.
Correct, yeah, because you need the mix of like the crunch, but also the softness of tissue. It's like when you see like the other ways I've seen them like break bone and use sound effects for that in films is like they break celery in half, and it's crazy. If you guys know anything about behind the scenes or watch any documentaries about how they make films, like to see the Foley guys, the sound effect guys, just in a booth, just doing these absurd things. But when you look at it on the screen, you wouldn't know. So interesting how the mind and the eyes and the ears all work together to put this together. Now, one of the more impressive tricks of the film is when Sanjuro he's recuperating and he's testing his skills and he's throwing a knife and catching a leaf on the ground. It's got to show that he's still got it. He's coming back, right? And that scene was actually filmed in reverse or shot backwards. So in the frame before the knife hits the leaf, you can actually see it. See the slit the leaf is in, and that's a key on how they accomplished the shot, because they just slipped a leaf in and out of that slot with the knife and then just played it in reverse. So that kind of captured what they were going for, him throwing a knife to a moving leaf, pinning it to the ground. Those are the tricks they used to get that across. So I thought that was pretty impressive. So obviously,
you're telling me Mifune is not actually a samurai?
No, he's an actor.
Oh.
I think you can tell on the second one that it's in reverse, but the first one, because you're not really looking for it and it's so quick, you don't really notice it. But on the second one, I think you do.
No, I agree, because I was like, what was that? And then you move on from it. But then when they go back to it, like, you can't do that same trick more than once, because then you're expecting it, you're looking for it. So that's a great point, Tom. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Now, this film, it was so successful that Kurosawa's next project that was already in pre-production, which became Sanjuro, was revised and revamped to include Mifune's character in that film, because it's like, well, we got to keep going with this guy, right? And classic, not Hollywood, but just movie making style. You got to go with what's hot, right? And the guy with the gun, as you said, Brandon, because I don't necessarily remember any of the actors or character names off the top of my head, because it is a very large cast of characters with Japanese names. I don't want to mispronounce them, but Tatsuya Nakadai, and if I'm wrong about that, I am sorry. But he returns to play the main villain in the next movie. Not the same character, but a different villain. It's like Mad Max. Where the guy that plays Immortan Joe was one of the guys, and Fury Road was one of the bad villains in one of the previous films. So anyway, interesting bits of continuity there. You used to see that stuff all the time in movies,
Well,
because it wasn't that big a deal.
You even see it in the Dollars trilogy. Lee Van Cleef is in 2 of them, playing different people. So, yeah. See,
I've seen clips of the movies, and I just assumed he was the same character, but maybe he's playing different characters in these clips I've seen. We'll see. Now, not only was the Dollars trilogy inspired by this, but apparently Django, the D is silent, the 1966 film, that, again, Tarantino took a name from that for Django Unchained, right? But that was inspired by this movie, Django, 1966's Django, as opposed to the Fistful of Dollars from 1964, which was pretty much an uncredited remake of this film. And there was a lot of behind-the-scenes controversy about it. I'll just touch on it here. We can get more into it when we get to Fistful of Dollars. But long story short, Akira Kurosawa sued Sergio Leone for infringement, and he won, and Leone had to pay 15% of the profits and over $100,000 to Kurosawa for remaking this film without permission. So there you go. That's one of the legacies of this film and that film, and why we're talking about them all together on Fanchise Fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Awesome, Zach. Good job on the trivia. It's a great. I'm really excited to be discussing this because this is something that's completely different from what we've done so far. You know, we've done horror, and like everything has been like cut and dry as to what the franchise is. So I'm kind of looking forward to this one here. We got a couple of fun ones coming up here, but I've been really, really looking forward to this one because I love samurai films, and I don't podcast in any way that lets me talk about them at all. You know, so this is really cool. So, Tom, I'm going to jump on you first. I'm going to jump to you first and just ask you your initial impressions of this film, what you thought coming into this movie for the first time.
I'm going to try and really separate myself from A Fistful of Dollars and not just be sitting here saying, well, this film does this and that film does that, you know, and just take this on its own. And what I really love is when you find a kind of strand of moviedom, a road of, I guess, an area of film that you've never really walked down, and when you find it, no matter how old it is, it seems so refreshing and so new to you. I mean, this was made in 1961, right? And
Correct.
it was just such a refreshing experience because I've seen samurai movies before, but this was just so different and fresh. And, you know, the cleaned up version just looks amazing. The black and white adds a kind of dimension to it. So there's all these things going on, and it really, I will mention one thing about A Fistful of Dollars. It does have quite a languid pace to it, but this movie just keeps on ticking, you know. It's sort of, there's a little lull later on when there's a bit of back and forth about, you know, swapping people over and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it just really keeps ticking over. And it was just, you know, such a refreshing thing to come to something that I've never, ever watched before. And I really want to, I mean, we'll get into it more, but I really want to check out more Kurosawa now because this was such a positive experience for me.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk off camera, but I mean, like, he's done some great stuff that's not even, like, not samurai films, but there's not many Kurosawa films that I don't like. I haven't seen all of them. I've probably seen about half of his films, but yeah, he's a really, really amazing director. So, Zach, what's your history with samurai films?
You know, I haven't really seen that many samurai films, to be honest. My Japanese cinema comes from the kaiju genre, so I've seen a lot of Godzilla films and other films that Toho and other companies like Daiei over there have made. So I guess just I can speak to, you know, foreign films, and that I think watching them subtitled does them so much of a better service than watching them dubbed.
Yeah.
Because I understand, like, you know, I understand why they dubbed things back in the day, because we were a less sophisticated audience back then, perhaps, dare I say, and people didn't want to, like, oh, you tell me I have to read and watch a movie at the same time, you know, like when you go into the drive-in theater, you don't want to read subtitles, right, from the back row of your car, that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of foreign films, and especially because Japanese films especially, those are the ones you see parodied, like, oh, look, I'm talking, but my mouth isn't moving. Aren't these films silly? You know, when people are kind of looking down on non-American cinema. But that comes to the people who dub them, and like sometimes they put on weird accents, and just the feel of the actors don't match the mouths that are moving. And you know, this film actually came out subtitled and dubbed. And now that I've seen the proper version, I would be just interested to see the dub, to see the difference, because no doubt, no matter how good a dub is, it's really hard to recapture really the flavor and feel of that film. So I would just use this film as a great example. With a lot of the other kaiju films, I would encourage people to always watch the film subtitled, because you're hearing the actors and their inflections, and so much of the performance of Mifune here is his, like, you know, his charisma, his style, you know, and to just imagine hearing some other generic American voiceover person saying those lines would have taken a lot away from it. So and then to your point, Tom, yeah, I got the Criterion Blu-ray collection of these, and these look amazing. right? I mean, these movies are almost 60 years old, and it looks like it